I first heard about it about a year before I was contacted by any farmers and ranchers. I was contacted by various groups around the country that were starting to get rumblings that this type of thing could be happening and wanted to know if I would be interested in representing landowners because they wouldn't be interested in really being a part of it unless I was a part of it. So then months went by before I'd even ever heard of a summit or navigator or anything, and then they started popping up. My first call were from two landowners in South Dakota, who, of course, I didn't know. They didn't know me, but they had known about my work for landowners on the Keystone XL Days 11-year project there. And they said they were having a meeting and needed to get me up there no matter what it would take. And so from there, we started doing a series of town halls and explaining what rights you have, what can be done, the path, the process, etc. So Jared Bosley and his family is one of our clients, and the underlying thing that goes on here is if a pipeline company, in this case, or a major company, is not getting traction, and they're realizing that the landowners here are really getting traction, they have to do something to undermine those landowners. They have to do something to put the landowners in the crazy, vocal minority box, because if they can't do that, then we have credibility and we can stand up to them. So it's a classic playbook. So in this case, they picked on Jared, who they thought maybe would be a hothead, blow off, do something out of the ordinary that they could then run, tell everyone. And so then going forward, well, those landowners are crazy. You heard about this. And then people shut it off and just go with Summit. So it was all part of a big ploy that they used. So fast forward, some surveyors come out to allegedly look around his land, even though we've had lawsuits related to that. And it's before the Supreme Court of South Dakota right now. And Jared's not even there. What happens is his wife calls what's going on. People are tromping around. We find on the video, as you've probably seen, trespassing, breaking and entering into his property. Jared gets on the phone, says, well, I can't deal with it now. He's farming. I'll be there soon. It's a 7-second call. We get the phone records, right? The text messages, we get the video, the time, we line it all up, march into court, because what Summit did is they had their land agents give affidavits as truth, submit them, and say that Jared, threatened to kill them, or I'm going to kill the first person I see. Now, this is pretty defamatory stuff, right? I mean, this is bad news, and they're putting it in the court of law. Well, shouldn't we be able to defend ourselves? You would think. We get ready, courtroom's full, have all the evidence ready to go, and the judge says, I'm not going to let you put any of your evidence on. And it's just like, what is happening here? I mean, just bizarre. Like, really, I've never seen anything like it. I mean, you can't defend yourself. You can't put evidence on. And he said, well, you're going to win. You're going to win, so don't even worry about it. And it's like, okay, but his name hasn't been cleared, right? Yeah, okay, fine. They're not going to survey in the way they wanted, but that's not what we came here for. So incredibly disheartening, but just another little piece of where people see there's so much more at play going on against you than what it seems. Anytime you're sued in condemnation, it's a bad day. But when companies are suing deceased relatives and people no longer with us, that's adding insult to injury. When you're served on your birthday or on a holiday, that's pretty low. I mean, there's no level that's low enough for these people to go through, because at the end of the day, when you're chasing dollars and you're addicted to that, there's nothing you won't do.
How do you account for Navigator just completely shutting down and pulling out?
Well, I account for it because we beat them. I, along with my clients, beat them in South Dakota, which was the first showdown, and they saw this was going to be a battle. And then the good folks in Illinois gave them a run for their money there, and they didn't get approval there, and they started to realize we're in for a fight we're not ready for. So smartly, they pulled out, saved their investors money, and moved on. But the reason they didn't go forward is because ground zero was our South Dakota PUC fight, and we beat them 3-0. Summit hasn't seen the light because they are much more politically connected. They've got the state of Iowa, whatever Bruce Strassretter wants in Iowa, it's done. He has the governor. She appointed the IUB, now known as the IUC. We knew that was a done deal. When the IUC approved on June 25th, okay, tell me something I don't know was going to happen, right? And so because that's the epicenter where the most ethanol plants are, where his whole life has been putting things together politically to do this, they believe they can overpower the process. The only reason that they are succeeding over Navigator is Navigator didn't have the political groundwork in place. Navigator thought Republicans and Democrats federally are behind this. It's great for farmers, more conservative. It's good. Environmental people are going to be happy. We are the second coming. Everyone's going to love us. But what Summit understood that Navigator didn't is you've got to have your political soldiers lined up. You've got to count votes first. That's the only reason Summit's still succeeding. And so the most frustrating part of this has been when voters, landowners, taxpayers, citizens of a given state think, well, we'll just go down to the state capitol and we'll just explain and this will all be fine. And I'm like, that's not how this is going to work. And so the most frustrating has been the duplicity of particularly Republicans that say, oh, I'm for the landowners and constitutional rights and property rights, when really they're just pro-mega business shills. And they couldn't care anything about property rights, constitutional rights at all. And that it's all, it's like that Benedict Arnold. It's like, well, I know you, I voted for you, we're kind of the same. And then, oh, no, we're not. That's been by far the most frustrating, going back year after year, writing new bills, getting them all organized, getting the speakers, doing all of that grassroots efforts just for them to vote it down again. Common sense, eminent domain, landowner protection reform. Just because someone might be affiliated with your political party, that doesn't mean at all that they care about anything that you care about. And so, you can't, I don't think you can be a one issue voter because there's, this is a complicated world and complicated country. But if you're worried about property rights, you better be sure, you better look how that person has voted on property rights. Because when they just say, oh, I stand with farmers and this and that, and then they just vote against your interest, but you keep electing them. So that's what's most frustrating to me, is trying to break through that, because people want there to be this magic silver bullet solution. And it's like, folks, representative democracy, you put these people in power that have done this to you. So yeah, we have to deal with this fight, but you got to throw them out. And so it's, it's big picture, it's little picture, there's so much to it, but it's that type of education, to me, I think is the most important, because you can make a difference with your vote, as, cliche as that sounds. In South Dakota, my folks had enough. They started running for state senate, running for the House, getting elected. And so we're going to, if you can't beat them, join them, and we're going to try to take over and get the laws in place that are needed.
Could you speak a little bit about SB 201?
Well, SB 201, it's a Senate bill in South Dakota, and it was dreamt up by the landowners' most fierce opponents, the Summit sympathizers, and they labeled it the Landowner Bill of Rights in order to lull asleep people that aren't paying attention. And, rest on campaign ads and promises. And, well, if they're doing it, they must be for the landowners. They're just like me. When, in fact, it was a very sneaky way of eroding the power of the Public Utility Commission, which is the state agency in South Dakota that has the power to preempt or essentially throw out county ordinances. So the little subtle switches on what the PUC is allowed to consider was very devastating, and it really was a gut punch to counties and people that have worked so hard on the concept of local control. My clients and others joined together across the state, and they were able to get SB 201 referred, which means it'll go up for a vote of the people, you know, the idea of actually a democracy where the people speak, and that will be voted on in November.
Let's talk real quickly about the easements. I'm offered an easement. I sign this easement. What have I signed away?
An easement, when you sign that away, you are signing away legal rights, often forever. In states where they can be perpetual, that means forever to the end of time. In North Dakota, they're limited to 99 years, but for most adults, that is forever to them. What you're signing away is anything that's in that easement, but primarily it's a forever access and use of your property above and below. Pipelines say would be buried. Maybe you have above ground appurtenances or lift stations or other things, eyesores. They have oftentimes at will access to the entire property wherever it's convenient for them to access the easement. They do not have to, in most cases, stay on, say, a 50-foot permanent easement. You are giving away rights to temporary access, temporary workspace, which temporary usually means at least 2 years. And you are giving away the right that that company can assign, sell, or transfer that easement, the legal rights in your land forever, to anyone on earth, to any foreign country, and you have no say-so, veto power, don't get paid again. Which is why you do not sign easements. Do not sign anything you don't understand every single word. And I would say most landowners get an easement, they just search, where's the dollar sign? Oh yeah, okay. That's what the companies want. Lull you to sleep on the dollars when they're just destroying your property rights on page 12 and 13 and 9. And so, don't sign things you don't understand. Sometimes the language allows for conversion of the material that's going through the pipeline. So people in the Midwest are very concerned about water conversion. You know, pipelines near aquifers. In the future, water will be the most valuable commodity, of course. And you're getting paid once forever. You don't get to come back and ask for more money. I mean, if there's crop damages and you can prove it, maybe, but you're just buying more legal fights. And then on the liability side, you are not fully indemnified for any risk of loss or damage that may occur due to an unintended release of the pipeline. So, and you can't buy insurance to cover that. So you have a lifetime of worrying, right? Hopefully nothing bad happens, but every night you go to bed thinking it's tonight the night, this catastrophe could occur. You still pay taxes, which is kind of the joke of an easement. Honestly, in some ways it'd be better if they were forced to, or the landowner could force them to buy them out completely from liability. But now they have the legal rights, but you still get to pay, your property insurance over all of that, even though it won't cover you, and you still get to pay property taxes, the real property taxes, for unwillingly hosting their hazardous pipeline. We've learned from Satarsha, Mississippi incident that the geohazards are a critical piece of this, because if pipelines are built on land that is susceptible to shifting, maybe your finer soils, not the heavy clays, but kind of the finer soils that can shift in rainfall and other weather events. Well, now you have pipeline instability, right? And when you have pipeline instability, you have breaks. And when you have breaks, you have catastrophes. And so one of the big things is, are these companies really surveying enough? Are they doing phase 2 geohazard surveys? And in many instances, they're getting rubber stamped before they've done full phase 2s to really understand the nature of the ground beneath the surface.
Let's talk real quickly too about the term common carrier and why liquefied carbon dioxide trapped at ethanol plants should not have that designation.
So there's lots of ways that a state can confer eminent domain rights. The classic from the Fifth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution that many states adopt is public use. And then we get into, well, what's public use? And that's where you get into the courts and it gets watered down over time. Another way to confer eminent domain power is to say, well, if you are a common carrier, then you can have the right to condemn and take other people's land. Well, common carrier can be defined on a state-by-state basis. There's not a federal definition that applies. So that means, again, if you can buy enough votes, you can make common carrier mean whatever you want it to mean, all right? And the idea, however, though, of common carrier is simply that you are, say, a transportation company, railroad, Greyhound bus, a taxi. Anybody on earth can come get in that taxi as long as they can pay for the exchange of value of that transport. You can be a part of it. Common carrier. It's not private carrier, okay? It's not, well, just you or just those kind of people. And so a true common carrier is simply that. It's something that can be accessed by all of us. It's something where the rates are the same. There's no secret or special contracts or deals. And I'm not just moving around my own stuff, okay? So Summit is a private carrier. Why? Because they take the CO2 molecules from the ethanol plant and become the owner at that moment. So if they're owning the CO2 and they're owning the pipeline and they're owning the areas or leases where it's being stored, what part of this is common transport? That's number one. Number two, it's not being used for any purpose, okay? So there's also no public benefit if we're going to go a step down from public use.
I did want you to talk about the situation in Iowa and how it's different from, I mean, we're focusing, so much of this focuses on North Dakota, South Dakota, and Iowa. Explain that real quickly. Why are those the states that we're focusing on so much and not Nebraska and Illinois?
CO2 pipelines are sited or routed state by state. Okay, a natural gas pipeline is sited or routed federally. So if a natural gas pipeline is going through 10 states, those 10 states don't get a weigh in on where it should go. CO2 oil pipelines, however, are state by state, which can be good and bad, right? The corporations want it all to go federal, so then they can just spend all their money on a handful of people and get what they want. They don't like they call it the patchwork of different state rules. But again, local control. Can't our state determine what's best for our citizens? So the reason it's different is because some states, North Dakota, are more educated, I would say, or maybe not educated, but used to these projects, so they know how to draft the laws to juice it, to game the system on how they want it. Other states may not. In Nebraska, our legislature has not given to our Public Service Commission, the agency that would regulate siting of pipelines, hasn't given them CO2. They haven't added and carbon dioxide pipelines. So we have no state regulatory body that cites in Nebraska, which is going to be very interesting when we get to legal confrontation there. In Iowa, it's very well laid out. The Iowa Utility Commission now oversees that, and they have a series of rules on how that works. Same in South Dakota and North Dakota. So again, state by state, there's challenges. In Illinois, they've got the ICC that does it, but recently the legislature there has put a moratorium on any CO2 pipelines, which all states should do. I mean, it's just an amazing journey from, the first meeting with clients where they're all like this, like, who's this lawyer, the big city slicker from big Omaha, right, coming up here. And then the journey to getting people that would never even speak out publicly to testifying multiple times in a state legislature, right? To having rallies, to showing up in court, to backing the fight, and to being the engine of change. That's the most rewarding thing for me. And then seeing the connections, the friendships, the family that we build on these fights. And so there is a silver lining regardless. It's that community that's created, and now we're stronger for the next fight, right? All you can do every day is just chisel away a little bit. There's no light switch for the change we want. You just gotta stay at it. None of the people that are now my clients, well, for the most part, had ever considered about having to write letters to the editor, go testify at the state capitol, get involved, be part of multiple lawsuits, defend themselves. And why did they get thrown into that? Because they just so happened to be the unlucky one that was targeted with this particular project. But why was that able to happen? Well, because when the people you didn't know on the other side of the state or in other states were fighting this in different projects years ago, you were asleep. It doesn't affect me. Gosh, those poor people. What's for dinner? That's what we can't do. Because if there's injustice anywhere, it's injustice everywhere, right? And when you see this happening elsewhere, you're next. You might be lucky by the timing, it may not be coming tomorrow. But when we allow our laws to be watered down to serve the mighty corporate interest at the expense of us common folk, right, we the people, that erosion will pop up in places you can't even imagine. And when it pops up, it's already too late because those laws and it's greased, and now you come, what? Well, you need to be involved 3 years ago. So this is just the beginning, and we're laying out the formula, at least for the organizing, the legal defense, the fighting chance. But ultimately, it's in the hands of the regulators, often elected or appointed officials that are, beholden to political connections, and sometimes in the courts. So all we can do is fight like hell and hope that the regulators and the other people realize the injustice.